What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to Kamikaze. Welcome back to Inside the YouTube studio. Today, extra special day. It's always a special day, but today is extra special. We have a great friend of the comic community and just an all-around, he's just an amazing personality that's just kind of want to follow along in his journey. So today we're going to learn a little bit more about him, his collecting, what his Instagram page is about. And yes, we normally have been doing people with YouTube channels. So today we're going to be doing someone who has a very large Instagram page, a ton of followers, and just a lot of people who respect him. So who am I speaking about? It's Joshscomics. We have Aaron here today, and we're just going to bring him on right now.
How's it going?
Aaron, how are you?
I'm wonderful. And you? Thanks for having me.
I'm good. I'm good. How is life on the West Coast right now? You must.
It is.
Is it raining or is it sun shining now?
It's not raining, shockingly.
Okay.
So I apologize if there's any background noise today. My son,
It's all good.
My 7-year-old is home, not feeling great, so he's chilling out on his tablet right now.
Okay.
But the weather is decent.
Excellent. You guys, some parts of California got snow, right?
You can see so much snow. I'm in Los Angeles. You look up the mountains.
Yeah,
I mean, they're
that's
just covered. I mean, it snowed. For example, I'm in the West Valley, and it snowed at my daughter's school when she was at school the other day, where it flurried there. And it's like, wait, hold on. These kids don't normally see snow, so it was a huge deal.
But it must have been special because they normally don't get that. So.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome.
Excellent. So today we're just going to learn a little bit about you, about the Instagram page, your journey to get there, where you're going to be in the future. So where we usually start is painting a picture of where it is now, where you are in your collecting, and then we'll talk about the future after we kind of get to know you just a little bit better and the page right now.
Perfect. So whatever you want to know, hit me up.
Just tell me about the Instagram page. Like
okay.
what's some of the things you do on it, some things that are concurrent, etc. You know.
Yeah, no problem. So basically, I started my Instagram account a little over a year and a half ago.
Okay.
My account's called Josh's Comic Books, and the reason I started my account is far different from most people's IG comic book accounts.
Okay.
I started my account as a way to keep my brother Josh's name and memory alive. My brother Josh passed away 3 years ago from an overdose.
Okay.
Josh and I were 4 years apart, and Josh is my younger brother. I have 2 older siblings as well, but Josh and I were always attached at the hip. We shared a room together. We had the same interests, and a huge part of our childhood and adulthood as well was comic books. And you know, we started reading. I was about 11 years old, so he was 7 when we first got into comics.
Sure.
And every Wednesday was the greatest day in the world because my mom would take the 2 of us to our local comic shop, and really to encourage us to read, she would allow us to buy any books we wanted. She didn't care. There was no cap on what we could buy. And we would just buy, a stack of 20 to 40 books every week, you know, from back issues to new issues. You know, we just devoured every single book that we could get our hands on. And, you know, it really attracted us to comic books was the X-Men. You know, we were kids. This was the early 90s, and the X-Men were the absolute shit. You had the cartoon.
Right.
You had everything.
Of course.
And so we gobbled up every X-Men issue that we conceivably could grab. And you know, that brought into every single Marvel book, and then every Marvel book and every DC book, and then later in the 90s, all the Image books as well. And so, I mean, we amassed quite a collection of 90s books, you know, which we thoroughly enjoyed. And, you know, we kept collecting as teenagers. I eventually went off to college, and I was, you know, reading books when I came home from break, but I wasn't reading them when I was at school. And Josh was still at home because when I was a freshman in college, he was a freshman in high school. And so that continued for the next 4 years. And then I ended up moving out to California after I graduated and working in TV as a producer. And Josh went to the same college I went to, Ithaca College in upstate New York. and ended up majoring in the same major as me. He's a TV film major as well.
Oh, okay.
And so, you know, we were apart for 4 years, where he came out for a couple spring breaks, and got to see him. But, you know, fast forward a few more years, when he eventually moved out to California. And so Josh, myself, and one of our good friends, this guy, Jeff, the three of us would just pool money and buy every single issue every single week for years. I mean, you're talking, you know, literally anything that came out, our pull list was all encompassing. And at that point, you know, I was definitely more of a reader than a collector. I was very careful with every book that I read. I bagged and boarded everything, but I didn't give a shit about grades. I didn't care about grading companies. That was a foreign thing to us. I know grading started 20 years ago. I wasn't doing it 20 years ago. I was strictly a reader and a lover of comic books and of the medium. And so was Josh. And so that continued up until when my daughter was born 11 years ago. And I just realized that I had short box upon short box of unread comics and just didn't have the space or the time to read them. And so I put my collecting and reading on pause. So if I'm rambling, I apologize.
No, this is it. The whole point of this is just to get an idea of what, because normally what I find interesting is, like, there's a lot of interaction with live shows in terms of YouTube and stuff like that. But with Instagram, it's more there's very short things to consume, right? So you only get glimpses of what people are about. So the whole point about this, I want you to ramble on. I want to know everything.
So I'll keep going. So you know, the MCU eventually, we all witnessed it. Iron Man came out and comic books blew up. I didn't get back into reading though until I was still reading trades and omnibuses here and there, but things I had around the house. I mean, I have stacks and stacks and stacks of trades and omnibus, and I would love to reread my favorite storylines over and over and over again. One of those guys, I'll read a story 50 times.
Yeah,
and
there's
still
a lot of epic ones for sure.
And so Katie was born, and then my son Luke was born, and Josh was still reading books the entire time. He was still buying, and he was still collecting comics.
So did the three of you have like a communal collection? Like, did you?
We didn't. It was more. Our friend Jeff was more DC guy, so Jeff would buy all the DC books, and Josh and I would buy all the Marvel.
But it was just one big collection.
Yes, one big circle of comic books.
Sure.
Where we would just pass them all around, and everybody got to read them. So then after Katie was born, it was paused. Lukey was born, still paused, still reading the things I enjoyed. And then Josh descended into a really horrible addiction, and it was heartbreaking to see. And for my wife and I, we realized how far gone he was. And it was one of those that, you know, Josh was the best uncle, the best brother, extremely hardworking. He was awesome. He was a member of the United States ski team for freestyle skiing. I mean, he could have been an Olympian. Instead of going and pursuing the Olympics, he decided to go to college. He was smart. He was funny. But Josh, you know, was, I think, self-medicating. I think he had deeper issues that he wasn't letting on.
Okay.
And so, you know, for years he was smoking pot at a very young age, and you know, that progressed to harder and harder drugs over the years. And so, about 4 years ago, he really took a turn. And my wife and I, Amanda, my wife, doesn't have any brothers or sisters, and so my siblings are her brothers and her sister, and she was closest out of all of my siblings to Josh.
Right.
And she's the one who really kicked my ass into gear, saying something's really bad is happening with him, and I kept trying to intervene, and so did she, and
which is very difficult.
Which was difficult, and you can only, I mean, the biggest thing, and it took me a lot of therapy to realize this, is that you as an addict needs to decide that they have a problem and that they need to stop.
Yeah. So
no matter how obvious it might be to me or to a loved one who's trying to help them, unless it's obvious to them and they want to change, they're not going to. And so, you know, an addict has there's two ways addiction ends. It's either you You sober up or you die. There's no in between. And so Josh ended up, he was really successful at his job, and then all of a sudden lost his job. And his explanation to it was, they had it out for me, or something that, was kind of a bullshit excuse, when I knew what was going on. Amanda, my wife, knew what was going on. And
That's okay.
so watching him spiral was really, really, really hard, and trying to help him was really hard. And the rest of my family was not aware of how severe his problem was. They didn't really want to accept it, and I think it wouldn't have mattered. The end result wouldn't have mattered anyway. So fast forward a little while, and Josh, my mom had a minor surgery that she needed, and Josh was always literally the first person to call you on your birthday, to wish you happy birthday. You get a call at like 6 a.m. from him, with like his voice just beaming and singing you as loud as he possibly could. If you were ever sick, he'd be the first person to call to stop by and check on you. So my mom had this procedure done, and my parents were at the hospital, and it was nothing major, and she was fine. But my dad never got a call from him, and so he asked me. Josh ended up. Josh bought a condo about a year and a half before he passed, and it was up by me, up by my wife and kids, and we would go over all the time, because he had a pool, and he redid it. He gutted his condo and made it into this gorgeous condominium, and he loved my kids. My daughter was his only niece. He has a lot of nephews, but it was his only niece. And Josh and Katie were closer than he was to any of his other nieces or nephews or niece. And so my dad called me when he was at the hospital and asked me. I was at work, and I was producing a paranormal TV show about ghosts, and I'm actually in the bathroom. My dad kept calling, and so finally I answered, because I'm like, okay, something obviously is up. And he texted that my mom was okay, so I knew it was beyond that.
Right.
And he's like, we haven't heard from Josh. Can you stop by on your way home from work and just check on him? And so the minute that I got that call, and I actually took the call, I immediately texted Josh, and I just texted him one line, and it was, "Are you alive?" And I didn't get a text back, and it didn't say that the message was ever read. So I knew then what had happened to him, and I stayed at work for another hour and a half, only because I knew what I'd find, and I was terrified of going there. I didn't call my wife to say where I was going. I just spent an hour in traffic, getting to his condo. And when I got there, I called my parents, and I made sure I wasn't alone, because I couldn't do it alone. And I get to his door, and his door to his condo, which he was very paranoid about having his door locked at all times, because we live in the city, and his condominium door was unlocked. So I walked into his condo, and his dog just came over to me and was barking at me, and I just was calling out his name, and I was searching his condo. I searched the 2 bedrooms. I searched, and then I finally ended up into the bathroom, and there I found my brother dead in his bathtub. And I froze. Told my parents I have to go to call 911, because I just found Josh and he's dead. And that's how my parents found out that he died. So that night, a big part of me died that night, because he was my best friend, of course. And I waited. I called my wife. I called 911. I called my wife. My wife was immediately over there. And my siblings and my parents came up to my house. I left after a while. I couldn't be there anymore, and I felt terrible, because I left his dog, Wookie, inside that condo. I just couldn't. I couldn't really control. I couldn't be around him at the moment. I feel awful still to this day for doing that. And he was in there until the paramedics arrived, and then my wife came out and she got him and took care of him. And I stayed there until I couldn't be there when they took him away. And the paramedics reassured me there was nothing I could have done. that he was, he was probably dead for at least 12 hours, and it didn't matter if I was there an hour ago or 2 hours ago or 5 hours ago.
Right.
So, and so I took it very hard, and I'm still taking it very hard, and I'm still just, I don't know if you've lost someone that you love, and I'm sure everybody has. And the biggest problem, I think, with an overdose is there's a stigma attached, which it doesn't matter to me. I don't give a shit. My brother's my brother, and I love him no matter what. But there's nothing out there for siblings who've lost someone to overdose. There's really nothing written about it. There's just, it just doesn't exist, and it's crazy to me because it's so commonplace, especially after during the pandemic and after the pandemic. And so the following day, my wife happens to be friends with one of the top psychiatrists in LA, and I was never been to therapy before, and I went right away, and it was, it was helpful because for months I blame myself, months, and still to this day I think I still do, that I didn't stop him from I didn't save him,
but you're
and I'm aware, I'm 100% aware of that, but as a big brother, you're supposed
gonna feel that.
Yeah, you're supposed to protect your sibling, your younger sibling, and I didn't. So I tried, and I did what I could, and I know that I did what I could, and no matter what, the result would have been the same. Right. My wife's a firm believer that when it's your time, it's your time, and he was 39. He left his mark on my heart and on my family's heart. And so the funeral happened, and my parents had to sell his condo because he had all this stuff in it, and it took a lot of courage to go back there because I didn't want to. I mean, still to this day, my head goes into a loop of playing out that night over and over and over again. And I went once to his condo because I had to see it, just to make sure it was real. And I got there, and in his closet were short boxes of comics and of his comics that he bought over the years, and I grabbed them all, and I took he had a copy of Hulk 181 on the wall. That was his favorite thing he owned. And Wolverine was always his favorite character. He had Wolverine tattooed on him. Oh, nice. He had the cover from Hulk 340 and from the Wolverine Limited Series issue 1, both his tattoos, and Logan was always, he just loved the angry Canadian.
I definitely share that passion as well, for sure.
So I brought all of his comics home, and they literally sat in my son's closet for a year. Because I just, I was comforted to know that they were there, but I didn't have the strength to look at them. And they were gathering dust for a year. And then finally, I said, fuck this. Like, what am I doing? Like, comics were what connected us, and we always loved them.
So does this coincide with you finding like the comic community? Like,
yes, 100%.
First off, Aaron, I want as we're gonna transition here, I want to tell you how much I appreciate you sharing that. Like you said, many people go through loss like that, and I think one of the most important things is being able to share that. So
I want others to know that they're not alone.
Right. 100%. And I just appreciate you sharing that with me.
I think by sharing what happened, I mean, granted, that's the one issue when you lose someone to addiction, and you're the one who discovers them. And the same thing goes for any tragic death. If it's suicide, it doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
And if you're the person that discovers them, you're trapped in that loop of that's your last memory of them. Mm-hmm. And you're not really ever given an opportunity to properly grieve, and it makes it incrementally harder. I don't think you're never over someone's death. That never happens. You're never fully healed from that. What you do is you're a new person. Who at that moment on, you're new. There's something different about you that's forever changed, and you have to learn to live your life with knowing what you saw and what you experienced. Mm-hmm. It is now a big part of you. And so And so I ended up finally opening up my son's closet and one night and flipping through all of his comic books, and I literally felt like he was right next to me.
That's awesome.
And here's his Hulk 340 that he had a tattoo on, which is the first book I'm seeing. Here's his Wolverine copies of Wolverine 1. Here's his, and it was literally like he was right next to me. And so I ended up the following week. I went to my parents' house. My parents moved from Boston to California, and 7 years ago, my son was born. And they brought all of our comics that we collected, 14 long boxes of comic books. A couple of them got lost along the way in the move, but
you didn't get the phone call. Here, can you come grab these, please? No, I always get the phone call from my mom.
They kept them because they knew how much they meant to us, but they also knew that it's Los Angeles. Your houses aren't that big here. You don't really have that much storage space.
Right. Of course, yeah.
So so I went and I picked up my 14 long boxes, and and then it spiraled. I went right back into reading. I was going back to, found a couple great local shops and was grabbing books to read every week. And, my personal Instagram account became very comic book heavy with just going on to discovered claim sales. I discovered, and the entire time it just, I really felt like Josh was there with me, and I was doing something that made us both happy for so long that it finally made me feel some not, I don't want to say relief, because that's not the right word, but it made me feel like I was able to handle his death a little bit better. And so this felt like something that could help me. And my psychiatrist actually is the one who told me that, your comics are your connection to him, and you need to do something with that. And so I started Josh's Comic Books. And it was funny because when I first I don't know, funny is the word, but when I first started the account, I couldn't get the name for IG for Josh's Comic Books. So it was Josh's Comic Books by AEM01. AEM01 is my regular personal account, which is nothing but photos of my kids and my dog. Right. So I that was my account's name for the first 5-6 months of having an account, and all I did was share books that we had in our collection. That was it. That was the whole point. It was nothing but, here are the books that my brother and I accumulated over the years, and I didn't give a shit if they were $high books or if they were just books that we loved, because it's, to me, story is everything. So then finally I was able to change the name to Josh's Comic Books, and did someone else have the account, or? I think so. I don't know. It was all of a sudden not available, and then randomly.
How did you find out?
I wanted to change the name to that, and so I just checked again, and it was available that day, and I'm like, okay, that's my new handle.
Wow.
So I got very tied into the comic book community because I saw what was going on in the market, and what was going on just with the crazy pricing. I mean, all of a sudden, books that when I was last collecting were $50 to $100 are now in the thousands, and and grading became a huge thing, and there was the speculation that was involved that never really existed when I was just a reader. Right. It's now rampant, and flipping books, and the COVID lockdown, because I got back into it during COVID, during the end of the lockdown, and it's all the things that Josh and I we collected because we loved them. We never collected comics because of value. If a book became something that was valuable, awesome, great. Yeah. But I never envisioned selling my comics anyway. This was more just a personal thing for us to have and to hold as something that meant something to us. So to see this whole culture of people getting into the hobby for a quick buck was really kind of eye-opening. Mm-hmm. And I decided not to be quiet about it, and so I
was this how far into creating the page?
Probably about 8 or 9 months ago into it. When I made my I started Big Boy Book Week, which
Yeah.
was Josh and I. So I do this thing every week where on my
Yep.
page, I focus on a collector friend of mine and show off their collection. I call it Big Boy Book.
Is it people that approach you, or do you?
No, it's always people I approach. So the first
okay.
one. So in the backstory on Big Boy Book Week, as kids, we always called books that were, you know, the mega grails,
Big Boy.
And I'm sure a lot of people do, but that's what we called it.
Yeah.
And the owner of our LCS, this guy Jackie, who owns Bedrock Comics in Framingham, Massachusetts, best store. So if you're ever there, go. Okay. He's the one who introduced us to the term. You know, we were little, we were just getting started, and he had, you know, grails, Batman 1, all these like mega grails. These are the Big Boy books, guys. These are the Big Boy books. Don't even look at these yet. Your mom's not gonna buy you those. So you know, that kind of stuck with me, and so I started this week as a means to share my friends' collections. And over the, you know, I've been very fortunate. I think a lot of it has to do with my backstory on why I've been able to accumulate a lot of followers. And so,
do you think it's because of that, or?
I hope so. I really hope it is. And so, because before I was just posting books from my collection, I was doing no other content besides, you know, posting funny memes here and there, memes that would make my brother laugh. That was the whole point of the memes. It was stuff that I knew Josh would have found funny.
Okay.
And just books from our collection. And so my account grew from, you know, 100 followers to thousands. I mean, within less than a year, I mean, I had 3,000 followers. And so I started Big Boy Book Week, and the very first person I ended up featuring was my friend Bill, Bucky's Books, and Bill happens to live local too. So like Bill is a friend in the real world as well as on IG. And I was over his house, and we just taking pictures of his books, and I was putting them up, and I'm like, this could be a cool thing to do and feature. And lo and behold, you know, it not only did I get to share some amazing grails that like most people don't get to hold in their hands.
Of course, yeah. There's some really nice books that get posted.
Yeah, thank you. And I got to help a friend grow their following too, which is pretty cool. And so the next person up was my another local friend, my buddy Ali, and then it just kind of became a thing of helping all my friends in the community that have these collections that are really fucking crazy.
Yeah.
So I've made some amazing connections to people, and they're sellers, they're collectors, they're some of them are investors, they're just, you know, people that, but everyone that's been featured on Big Boy Book Week shares a passion, a love for comics as a medium, and that's the thing I look for the most. I don't really care what books you have. I care that you're vocal in your support of comics, and that you love comics for being just that. They're stories, and they're living history. They're amazing. Yeah. And so that week I actually did my first video. When I introduced Big Boy Book Week, I did my first video because I like everybody, don't get me wrong, I went through FOMO. You know, like during the boom, I was like, I need this book. I'm gonna spend $300 on a She-Hulk 1. Like,
okay, before this is one of the things that actually really drew me to your channel when you're discussing this. Let's talk about FOMO for a second. Okay. Let's talk about where you think it sits, and like, I mean, everybody succumbs to it. Myself, 100%, right?
100%.
It's just how you deal with it, right?
Yes, I think that you know, what I noticed the most, and I touched on it a little bit earlier, was the new wave collecting, like the collecting based on movies and TV projects with speculation. And you know, my day job is a TV producer.
Okay.
And so I'm very familiar with the way that shows are made and movies are made. It's, you know, just because a project is announced means nothing. Right. The odds of a project actually going from an announcement all the way to green light and even being aired are minuscule. They're tiny. It's a, you know, there's a tiny fraction of projects that are announced that are ever made, and it doesn't matter what medium it is. It can be TV, it can be film, it can be online. You know, major projects are all the same way, and so it was kind of driving me fucking crazy that you know, there was an announcement, and all of a sudden a book that was, you know, a $10 book is now $500. And you know, it just made no sense to me. So I think that speculation created a sense of FOMO, and additionally, FOMO when I got back into collecting, it was during the boom. And, during the COVID lockdown, we all had nothing else to do except for, we're all trapped in our homes and comics.
Look at our old collections.
Yeah, I think comics gave us something to, the IG definitely gave me another community to be a part of when it wasn't just me trapped in the house with my 2 kids and my wife, who I love dearly, but it was nice to talk to other people in the outside world.
Yeah.
And so what I saw happen was a lot of people were like me, who had a big gap in their collecting and collecting days, and all of a sudden were returning in droves. And we wanted to collectively, I think, get back to where we were in our previous collecting days, which was, reading and buying books and having fun with it. But the whole mindset of collecting, I think, has changed a lot, because now you have movies and TV shows where there's an announcement, prices spike, and there's kind of an unscrupulous group, I think, that loves to profit off that. But what I know, and I've known since I first started collecting, is we're the buyers. That's the biggest thing. Collectors are the buyers. We're the ones that set prices. So I can make an unlimited amount of memes and videos saying "say no to FOMO," but at the end of the day, it's the reason why prices spike is because there are buyers willing to pay that for a book.
Right.
So it's kind of my end goal is really to empower collectors, to let them know that you don't have to do that. We should buy books that we love, that you really want, and you should buy them because of that, not because some movie project is announced or TV project is announced, and you're feeling like, if I don't buy it right this second, the book's going to be priced out of my league, and that's what kept happening. Quick FOMO story for you from what happened to me. I love Boba Fett. I never really got into Star Wars comics as a kid, but I wanted Boba Fett's first appearance. And so Book of Boba Fett was announced. It was coming out, and it was like the week before the show came out, and this was when it was at the all-time high. I mean, this book was it was ridiculous what great copies of this book were selling for. And I ended up buying
Star Wars 42? No.
Star Wars 42, first Boba. I could grab it if you want, but it's in the comic room. But so I was watching a live sale, and they had a 9.0 copy at a relatively decent price for the time. It was market price, but it wasn't crazy. But I buy it. I'm like, I gotta buy this because next week when the show comes out, this is gonna be $800, and I can't afford it, so I'm gonna buy it for $600.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, the show comes out. It's fucking terrible. And the book just nosedives. I mean, I can't even sell the book for half of what I paid for, and I won't sell it because I wanted the book because I love Boba Fett.
It's a great book.
Great book, phenomenal cover.
Yeah.
I read the inside of the book too. Granted, you can't read a slab, so I read a trade of it.
Sure.
And great story. It's fun. I'm a big Star Wars fan. My son's name is
Same
Luke.
here.
So just to
nice.
give a backstory, his room is a Star Wars theme.
Okay.
So
just like ours were back in the day, probably.
Yeah.
Mine was.
So that was a start. So that was that was my biggest hit when it came to a FOMO purchase, was what the fuck did I just do? Why did I do this? And so I don't want other people to do that. I feel like, if you're buying a book, it's personal. Comics should always be personal. Comics should always be what you love. And so when I did Big Boy Book Week, I made my first video, and I did my first video on the thing that really rubs me the wrong way, and I don't know if you feel this way as well, but they're top 10 lists. And it's because I feel like top 10 lists do nothing but hype up books for no reason other than, there's some announcement or there's something. And it's just, even if you're reporting solely on sales volume, it's still flawed, because you're still advocating that these are the top 10 books that you must buy this week. And that's just not the case. Wizard, back when I was a kid, did the same shit. It was like, here's our top 10 books of the week.
It took a little while longer to get to you, but
yeah, but it was the same. It was similar, but you're talking about books that were just published that were $3 or $2, whatever the case might be. Now you have books that are $500, $1,000, $10,000 that are being hyped up, or even lesser books that were like, oh, here's the first Hypno Hustler, a book that was a dollar bin book, and all of a sudden now it's $400 for a CGC 9.8. That's bananas, absolutely bananas. So
I do think that FOMO is directly tied to people seeing what these books can go for.
100%.
I think it's directly tied to the monetary aspect.
I think speculation creates FOMO, and I think also top 10 lists create FOMO. And so those were kind of the two things that I really wanted to go after. And I have a voice, and I make TV for a living. So for me to make content is really fun. And I've actually taken the past year and a half off to be home with my kids and help raise them, because my wife and I were kind of sick and tired of paying other people to raise our children.
That's awesome.
And so now I'm home with my kids a lot, and I needed some sort of creative outlet as well. And so I made my first video about top 10 lists, and basically just said, here's the comic you need, and it's bigger than any book on a top 10 list. Buy whatever the fuck you love. And that video ended up getting like 5,000 views.
Oh, really?
And so I was like, all right, I'll do another one. And then I just started hitting on all the topics that really mattered to me in the community. And what I really love about doing videos is the engagement factor. Like, I'm able to express my own views, but I also want to hear what the community at large has to say. And I read every single comment. I comment on every single comment. I mean, sometimes I just put an emoji, and I apologize for that. But I mean, when you have like 300 comments, it's kind of hard to write 300 different unique replies. But I kind of started, I don't know if it's a war against FOMO, but it's definitely my end goal is to empower other collectors to know that you should only buy books that really, really, really matter to you, because that's something that I know my brother would fully support, because that's all we did. And it was really kind of erasing the mentality of, I need this right now or I'm not going to get it, because that's not true. Right. There's always room to get a book that you want, and you can you can be patient. And I never had slabs until I got back into the hobby. And once I got back in, CGC had a year wait for modern books, and I submitted 50 books that Josh and I collected. And we were meticulous with our comics. Like, we would read our comic books every Wednesday on the dining room table. We put them down very carefully. We turn the pages like this. And I mean, I had almost every book I submitted from my childhood came back as a 9.8. And I mean, and these are books that I thought would never be worth anything to begin with. And I wasn't collecting for them to be worth anything, but like, all of a sudden, ASM 300 and a 9.8 is a $5,000 comic book that I'm sitting on. It's like, wait, what? Like, where did it move?
We're going to be doing an unboxing. Is this from that collection?
That is a book that I always wanted, that Josh always wanted too, because we love Captain America. But it's all right, I ruined it for you.
Okay. That's all right.
But it's not. But it was not from our personal collection. My personal collection from when I was a kid, and the collection that Josh and I accumulated, was very heavy for 80s and 90s books. Okay. I had very little Silver Age. The Silver Age that I had was read so many times. I mean, I think I slabbed maybe 2 of those books, and they came back really low grade. And I only slabbed them to preserve them. It wasn't for value, because I don't sell my books. I'm a hoarder. I probably need to, and I need to thin out the collection, because it takes up my son's entire closet and most of his room. But I don't, and so I'm rambling now. So
no, it's okay. Look, we're at the point where I really kind of wanted to dig into this, but this is not. I'm not trying to compare anything, but I really feel and I love it when you make the videos about FOMO and being aware, but you're empowering people, and you're giving people the knowledge. I'm not saying it's the same thing, but these people who are making top 10 lists and this and the other is one thing. They think they're trying to give people the information, the power, but I think it's skewed to a degree, and I really appreciate your creativity and how you make these videos. It's information that people need to know.
Yeah, and you know what? And I'm not saying I'm right about everything. It's what I believe, and everyone is free to disagree with me. I've been attacked by someone who made a YouTube video with railing against me with like 4 of their friends, on everything that I say is wrong, and I'm the incorrect one, and FOMO is a good thing, and I'm just like,
wow. Okay.
and you know, I will never take anything personal. I will never go after people by name. I speak in broad strokes for a very specific reason, because I'm never going to single anybody out, because there are people that practice the things that I go against, but my place is not to call them out on it. I don't want to name names. I've never been that way. I might disagree with something that somebody does, and I might make a video about that topic, but I will never say, hey, so-and-so did this, and that's fucking wrong. I just won't do it. And these people kind of, this little group took it and made a video about me. And I was just like, really?
Well, I guess it's flattering to a degree, right?
And it was flattering. I think it was also, you know, I've been lucky. I made some great friends in the comic book community, and some of them happen to be like, you know, pretty big sellers. And one of them is Hiram, and from Hiram's Collectibles. And so Hiram and I had this fake little feud about Booster Gold 1. It lasted for like 3 or 4 days, and like he did a live sale where he was like, everybody say, you know, write in the DM, Aaron is wrong, and everybody wrote it like, and so I made memes about him back, like, Booster Gold sucks, Hiram, like whatever. Yeah. And so I think maybe they thought maybe that was real. I don't know. And so I just don't address that, because I'm out here to help collectors in general, and especially new collectors. And like, I had a big gap in my collecting time, and the market changed, and I don't want people to make the mistakes that I did. It's that simple. Yeah, here I am now, and actually it's funny because Big Boy Book Week has become a big success. My videos get a lot of engagement, which is awesome, and I love to communicate with the community. And then I started to really just make my own memes. I threw out the whole thing of poaching memes a long time ago, and I make 90% of my memes. Other ones that are too good to share, I'll share.
They're fun. But they're like a different creative outlet. They're just poking fun. Like, some people take them. I've made a few as well, but sometimes people take them a little too seriously. Oh, they have to be like, I'm just joking. I'm just poking fun.
It's the shock value, you know. It's
just
like,
poking fun.
I think shock value. If you can say something that gets someone to go, oh fuck, you went there. It's kind of fun. So, and it also gets people to talk about it. And so this week, you know, again, I love the community. I'm 100% enjoying my time on Instagram, and it makes me feel like I'm at a con every day. You know, I feel like my brother's right next to me. That's and I'm awesome. Able to talk to these thousands of people every single day. And so I was trying to think of a way, what can I do to give something back to the community, because, you know, I do giveaways for every like 500 or 1,000 followers. And there's always books from my personal collection that are just fun books. But I'm like, all right, who cares? That's just giving away a book. That's meaningless. It's, you know, anyone can do that. And I'm like, I'm lucky that I have a decent following. So I wanted to devote something to my followers. And comic books to me that mean the most are books that have a personal story attached to them. And so I decided to do Collectors Week, which is happening right now on my page, Josh's Comic Books.
All the information will be down below for sure.
I just kidding. So I started Collectors Week, and I announced it last week. And as a way for all of my followers to send in as many books as they want to me with stories. What is the story behind the book? What is a book from your collection? It doesn't have to be a valuable book, and if it is, fine, but it doesn't have to be. What is a book that just means something to you? And please let me know that story, and I'll share it. And crazy enough, I've had over 300 as of yesterday. I had over 300 submissions,
and you're still getting more, right? And
I'm getting, you know, I think this morning I got another 30 or 40. And so I apologize if I haven't posted your book yet, and I'm also sorry, guys, that the recent submissions, I've been posting a couple of those faster just because they're at the top of my inbox, and I've just been very quickly throwing them up. But I will get through all of them. But it's been amazing, and to read everyone's stories, and I've read everyone's story. Everyone who submitted a book, I've read your story, and they're beautiful. There's everything from, this was my first comic book that I got when I was, you know, 6 years old, and they still have it, which is wonderful. Or this was, you know, here I met my my favorite writer at a con when 20 years ago, and I had them personally sign this book and it's addressed, or this book was given to me by a dead relative, or I mean, the stories, they're endless. Or my favorite one was yesterday. Somebody lost their pet, lost their dog, and so they had Trish Foster do artwork on the cover of, and Tony Fleece, of a blank Stray Dogs, and they had their dog put on the cover of this. That's great. And it's just, it's the emotion I felt while reading this was just like, I mean, that's such a lovely tribute and a way to keep the memory of your pet alive. And it really hit home for me too, because that's, the books, I've been trying to share books, but I don't, of my own collection, but I also don't want to inundate. I don't want this to be a week about me. So I've been very hesitant about posting my own things. I posted a couple books here and there, and the biggest book that I posted was my one mission for the collecting mission this year was to get an X-Men 1, which kind of leads us to your unboxing.
That's we can get to the unboxing, but I think you now have a book in your collection that has probably, there you go. Let's talk about it. Like, there's the journey to this.
So there was
Love it.
Josh and I's kids, and it wasn't even a monetary thing. That I didn't want the book because it was a big book, but the two of us loved the X-Men. X-Men was always, it's what got us into comics. It's what he read until the day he died. It's what I read now. And it's, I think, the most important series to the two of us. And so as children, since we started collecting, we always wanted an X-Men 1. And it was one of those books that, like, we talked all the time about it and how great it would be to have this book. We had a GSX 1 at one point. We've had, I've had most of the X-Men keys, but we never, ever, ever had an X-Men 1. And
was it always in the, like, between the two of you, you're like, one day we will have this? Like, was that? It was
one of those
goal?
The one day, if we had the disposable income for it, yes, but like it was one of those that, like, we're like, there's no way on earth we're ever going to spend that kind of money on a comic.
Right.
It's so outside of the realm of possibility of ever having it. It was the dream book. It was the book that, like, you talk about it, but you're like, I'm never ever going to actually get it. It's too big for me now. So last year I got, I was able to knock off a lot of books that we wanted for a personal collection, and of course I was buying during the peak, and I got into Slab Comics, which I love,
like everybody else did.
Exactly. And so when you start to realize, like, I'm just buying books to buy books. I mean, granted, they were all keys and big books that I wanted. It wasn't the one book that I always wanted. And so before the new year started, I really had a cathartic moment going, you know what, the only book that I want in my collection that I don't have is an X-Men 1, because that's the book that Josh and I always wanted. And I have a giant collection that I can make work for me. And I'm not a seller. I don't pretend to be a seller, but I refuse to spend my own money. First of all, my wife would have killed me. Second of all, I mean, it's a lot of money. And so, I was looking at my books in my collection. I'm like, what do I love? The only books that I want in my collection are books that I love, that I'm passionate about, that mean something to me. And so I pulled a lot of the books that I really like, but not books that I love. And I ended up selling off quite a few books from my personal collection. One of them to you. So thank you so much. To friends in the community. And I don't even think, I don't ever want my page to be a sales page, but I actually put up the first books for sale on my page a few weeks ago. And I don't know if it's people that wanted the book necessarily or wanted to help me, either way, which is awesome.
I'll be completely honest with you, and I kind of alluded to this when in some of the chats we've had, DMs. I kind of did want this book. Like, I've been following some sales and stuff like that. I would say it was, in terms of the tier of how I want, it's probably like 7th or 8th in terms of a top 10. Still an awesome book, but I love books with an emotional attachment, a story, So when I saw this happening and I saw what your goal was, I wanted to help. That's it.
No, so. and I don't think anyone understands how grateful I am to everybody who.
Oh, I think they understand.
And so, you know, I ended up selling 14 books. Some of them were books that, you know, Josh and I actually bought as kids. A lot of them were that were from my collection as a child that I graded, and you know, luckily the ones that I sold from that, I had doubles of. That wasn't eliminating the books
which always helps, right?
Because I you know, the books that really matter the most to me are the books that we accumulated together, that we collected together, that we read together. And so, as luck would have it, you know, I tried to give you my first experience was to get the X-Men ones. I brought a bunch of books to SoCal Comic Con, and with the hope of trading for an X-Men one, and quickly found out that that con dealers don't necessarily value your books at real GPA values.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. Some are really good about it in terms of trading, but some are not.
And I, you know, I kind of expected it now. I thought that, you know, if I could do it, great. If I couldn't, fine. And so I did a video about my experience at the con, and an amazing friend on Instagram who was actually featured on Big Boy Book Week, my buddy Mark, he saw my video, and he had now it's mine, a stunning copy of X-Men 1.
Oh, is that how you found it? Oh, okay.
And Mark offered me his personal copy. So that kicked my ass into gear. I knew the book was available. I knew that he was selling it to me for a great price. He literally completed my collection, and so then the next step was funding it, and I was able to move a lot of books very quickly because people, I think, really rallied behind me. And stunning book, man, stunning book.
I love it.
So, including yourself. So and so I ended up getting this last Friday.
That's amazing.
I mean, I literally had tears in my eyes when I opened it up. I don't know what to do. Like, honestly, as a collector, I don't even know what to do now. I don't know if there's any other book that I want. Like, I mean, you know, I have this, and I spoke earlier about Josh's Hulk 181, and that has a whole story to it as well. That if you want me to tell it, I can. But it's kind of a little long. But I'll give the abridged version. You know,
sure.
This was the book that meant the most to him, and his Hulk 181, and he had it in a frame. And it was hung up on his wall of his condo, and I didn't want it framed because I didn't want the frame. I don't know why. There was an attachment to the frame that reminded me too much of his condo. I didn't want it there. I couldn't handle it.
Sure.
I couldn't look at it, but I wanted to look at the book, and so there's a pretty big frame, and I knew exactly where it was in his condo. And it just took me to a place I didn't want to be. So I sent his book in for preservation to CGC. I just wanted to get it preserved by having it graded. I didn't care about the grade, didn't give a shit. But so I sent it in and did walkthrough service on it, and it came back as a purple label. And
oh wow, really? Okay.
So, and this is a book he had for 15, 20 years, I don't even know, a while. And no one knew that it was purple label. No one, back then, too. I mean, that's another thing. When we were, collecting as kids, no one gave a shit about color touch. You didn't really look for it.
What was it about the book that?
It had a tiny amount of color touch on it. And so it was C1. It was a tiny amount of color touch. And for some reason, it really rubbed me the wrong way that it would come back as a purple label. And it wasn't because of the color touch. It's never a book I would ever sell. But I knew that I could fix this fucking book. I couldn't fix my brother, but I could fix his book. I could get this to be a blue label. And so I set about trying to find someone who could remove the color touch. And as luck would have it, I ended up meeting up with who I think is the best comic book restorer and presser out there, Kenny Sanderson over at Sanderson Studios. And Kenny, I DM'd Kenny, and Kenny responded back, and I wrote the whole story. I told him all about Josh, and I told him how important this book was, and it's a smaller book than he would normally work on too. And Kenny said, "Send it to me, Aaron, and I'm not charging you. I'm going to fix this book for you." And we did, and it came back as went down a tiny bit. Who cares about the grade? Again, it was a 5.0 that came back as a 4.5, but it was a 5.0 off white pages to a 4.5 white page copy. That's
amazing.
I just felt this, when it came back, I mean, it was empowering because it gave me some closure to his death. And I know that might not, it makes sense to people that may not
totally
do this,
does.
but it helped me so much. And I was able to fix something of his. And to me, that just, it mattered so much. And so, as you shared the book this week on Collectors Week, one of the few that I put up myself. And so there's that book, and there's this book that are going to be put up on my wall. I don't ever display comics. I keep my comics in my son's closet in a box. But these two mean too much to me to not have out. And so I finished. This is completing the collection. The Hulk 181. I should have had that with me right now, and I'm sorry I don't.
That's okay.
But that meant the world to him, and to marry the two of them really, I think, is amazing. And so as far as a collector is concerned, I don't know where else I need. I think there's nothing else there's no other book that's out there that's personal to me that I need. I mean, there's books that, don't get me wrong, I would love to have, but it's not a vested interest. There's no passion. Like, it's not an emotional need to have that book or have any other book.
This is my perspective on it, and it's, I could be wrong, but it feels like, and everybody goes through those moments in their life where you just kind of pivot and you journey into a different direction. It really feels that you've come to sort of a trailhead, fork in the road, and you're just going to move off into a different direction. I've had many conversations with people who got their big boy book, got that grail, and then they just move off, and then their focus becomes something else. But that journey stays that journey, and then you continue on to another one.
What's great about comics is that I don't need to buy more books. Like, that's the thing. It's like I have such a large collection already that when you're not buying, I actually took a pause from buying for 6 months. I stopped buying. I refused to buy books. I'm like, I stopped. I now will really only read trades. So I stopped buying weekly books anyway. But I put a pause on buying anything. I'm like, I'm not buying comics right now because the market's in flux and there's nothing out there that I really, really want. And I'm not just buying a book just to buy a book. It's stupid. Mm-hmm. So I didn't buy anything for 6 months. And then I go and I get this. So I go from one extreme to another.
That's okay.
But, when you're not buying, and during those 6 months, it's amazing how much I was just enjoying my own collection and looking at it and loving it and realizing, even if there's so many books that I have that mean absolutely nothing to other people. There's books like, there's this random DC book that came out in the 90s called Major Bummer that for some reason Josh and I really, really loved. Nobody else gives a shit about that book. I reread it about 10 times. That's awesome.
That's amazing.
It's just, you really appreciate what you have, which is phenomenal. Sorry, my phone battery for some reason now is coming low, but it's the next step in collecting. I don't know. I just want to, stay engaged with the community and keep people to know that you don't need just grails. Like, that's the thing, is you don't need just big books. No one, right. You don't just need an X-Men one. You don't need any of these. And I didn't need it. I wanted it, and it gave me. It was therapeutic for me. I'm not saying that but I don't want anyone to feel like I'm advocating that you need to have big books in order to be a collector. You don't. You can buy whatever you love, and if what you love are these, dollar bin finds and finding amazing books and just reading them and loving them. That's amazing. That's fantastic. If your love and passion is buying, $50,000 pre-code horror books off of Heritage, awesome. There's so many great ways to collect. Yes. And the coolest thing about IG is that it's brought all of us together. It doesn't matter what type of collector you are. We're all in this community together, and it's really amazing.
I think the community has. I think there are a lot of people that came into collecting or the realm of comics during the lockdown who were just, they saw, oh my God, comics are exploding right now.
Yes.
There's a lot of money to be made, this, that, the other. And I think now that things are settling and new floor prices are being created, I think a lot of those people are gone. And right now it's super concentrated. And I really feel that it is a super tight knit community. And then all that peripheral stuff is kind of gone away.
I think it's decreased. I don't know if it's gone away. I definitely seen less of it. So, and I think that, you know, people that came in solely to flip books are hurting. If you bought most of your inventory during the boom, you're kind of fucked. Like, and a lot of these people, you know, I mean, they were buying and using credit cards and using other things to buy books that weren't probably the smartest way to buy books, but, you know, prices kept increasing. So it didn't matter. You could flip a book and you were going to make more money on it no matter what. And then all of a sudden the market just fell out. So I think a lot of it is we're seeing a flood of a lot of people escaping the hobby that, you know, feel, I don't know if they were in it for the right reasons or maybe just, you know, feel like they're a disconnect now because of things that have happened. But prices have definitely been driven down, and it's nice to see that. Like, I mean, it's wonderful for collectors that do want big books to now be able to afford them. I mean, someone who wants a,
much
you know,
more
a
attainable
15
now.
and it was completely out of their own possibility. Still a very expensive book, don't get me wrong, but, you know, a 1.0 for $40,000 doesn't sound that appealing to anybody. But now at under 20, it makes it so you might be able to get it. I'm not saying $20,000 is a shit ton of money. I can't afford that. But it's to see those books come down in half.
Yeah.
I think opens up their own possibility that, you know, there's hope that a lot of us can get the grails that we want. And even if that's what you want to do, not saying you have to do that by any means.
Yeah, it makes me happy to know that people can get into those books, because there's a lot of, you know, friends in the community, they're like, I'm never going to have that book. It's just, the prices are just too astronomical. And now people are like, maybe I can get it. So it's definitely way more engaging and fun time right now. So
I agree.
So I don't want to take any more of your time. You've been so gracious and
sorry, I ramble.
No. That's amazing. I want people to get to know the journey that you took to get here. I wanted to know the journey. Like, I mean, I knew bits and pieces, but now that I know a lot more of it, it makes me happier. And I appreciate you telling me your story. But before we go, I have, and I've told you, I have 10 questions that.
Give me your top 10 list. No, just kidding. Go ahead.
It's not a top 10 list. It's just 10 questions to. We got to know Aaron a lot better, but with these we maybe a little bit more. And some of them I'm really curious to see what you're gonna tell me. So this list of questions comes from Bernard Pivot. And James Lipton used to use it on Inside the Actor Studio, and I use it on Inside the YouTube Studio. So without further ado, we're going to, are you ready?
I'm ready, man. Hit me up.
Okay. All right. So first question, what is your favorite word?
My favorite word is a word that always makes me laugh, moist, and my wife hates it.
You know what? Everybody, okay.
Followed by fuck, but go on.
Okay. If it's favorite word, a lot of people said that that's the word that they hate, which is interesting.
100%. That's why it's hilarious.
So the next question is, what's your least favorite word?
No.
Okay. Right to the point. I love it. What turns you on?
Are we talking about sexually?
It's not literal. It's not literal. You can go there. It's not literal.
We'll focus on collecting. How about, you know, finding an amazing comic in a random dollar bin box, and it doesn't have to be a valuable book, but it's like some random book I was looking for that was missing from my collection. I think that makes me.
It's the best feeling when you
awesome.
You know you're digging in those back bins and you find that.
This is that X-Men issue I needed. Holy shit!
I know. All right, what turns you off?
Mean people. Like I'm not a fan of negativity. I don't like people just being mean to be mean.
Fair enough. What sound or noise do you love?
You know what? Laughter is by far my favorite thing to do.
Yeah, a lot of people have said like their children's laugh.
Oh, my kids, my daughter has a cute laugh. My son can be very loud.
Okay. What sound or noise do you hate?
Probably one you've heard 1,000 times. But I can't stand the sound of chalkboard, the nails on chalkboard. It just drives me fucking crazy.
Common thing.
Yep.
A lot of people have said like steel dragging on the ground. So a lot of that annoying noise.
Or Karen's complaining to a manager at a store. You know, I mean, that's really annoying too.
That's a good one. Sure. This is the one I know what you're gonna say, but I'm very curious if it's different. Mm-hmm. What's your favorite curse word?
Ooh, I mean, I already said fuck was, so I mean, it has to be fuck. Fuck is just the most appropriate, easy word to use, and it's so versatile.
Well, it is very versatile because you can use it in so many different ways, like to be pissed off, to
It's a noun, it's a verb, it's kind
right.
of, I mean, it's brilliant.
It's amazing. It's a great word.
It really is.
2 more questions. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
You know what? That's a great question. Let me think for a sec. I think that you know, I would have to say maybe being a teacher. I think elementary school teacher probably, because I think that you have the most impact on someone's lives as a teacher, and I think everybody remembers their phenomenal teachers and their bad teachers, and there's not enough phenomenal teachers out there. So I would say definitely a teacher.
That's awesome. I like that. I thought about being a teacher for a while. My mom back in the day, she almost had me convinced to, because back then it was so much easier. Like you didn't have to go to teachers college instead of the others. So almost. But that's a good one. Last question, and I think I can know what you're going to say. But when you pass and you arrive in heaven, what would you like God to say to you?
You did good. That's it. I don't, I really, I just try to be as good of a person as I can be. I'm not saying by any means that I don't have flaws, because I have. You can ask my wife or my kids. I have a ton, but I think that I just try to do good by everybody. So that's you try, and hopefully that would be a good thing to end up in.
Yeah, just to know at the end of the day that your actions have either done whether people know it or not, have done a good thing. For me, that's like
huge. Yeah,
it's gigantic for me. So
be a good person. I mean, my big thing is I try to be a good person, not for a reward. It's just be good to be good.
Right.
That's I instill that in my kids. It's really you should always try be nice to everybody, be kind, and laugh. Enjoy the moment, because life is really I'm going to tell you my own experiences in life. Life is very short, and it changes on a dime.
100%. That's it. You survived the questions. You survived the chat. Before we go,
you got your book finally.
I got my book.
Thank
you so much. It's here. I'm a huge Avengers fan, a big Captain America fan, and I'm happy to help. Happy to
thank you so much.
Help you attain your book. But before we go, do you want to tell the audience anything? I'm going to put all your information below, but
guys, if you want to ever communicate with me, I'm send me a DM on Instagram. I love chatting with people. But and if you disagree with me, let me know too. If I said anything that offended you by any means, reach out.
Right, exactly.
That's kind of it. I'm pretty open about who I am, and really love being part of this. And thank you so much for having me. It was a great time.
Of course. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate the chat. It was definitely fun. That's it, everybody. Hope you all have a fantastic day, and we'll see you soon. Take care. Cheers.
Thank you, man. Bye.